Okay, I think I have the shape refined down to where I'm ready to commit it to some tool steel. So I made the little thumb receiver, and that feels nice in my hand. It just gives your thumb a positive place to stop. And as I said, I may do some serrations or just some semicircular type things. It feels good like that, but maybe, I don't know. We'll play with that. There's a lot of things I can do before heat treatment, and even after heat treatment, I have diamond files that'll cut this hardened steel if I choose. So I took some of the belly out, and that feels a little more comfortable. Now, bear in mind, this is going to have a couple of micarta scales, and I'm going to mill them kind of thin. I don't want them too fat and bulky. So it's really going to give your hand something to get around. And then on the back side, I shaped this and got some of the bulkiness off of it, and then on this point in the back, I got to thinking about that, and I held it in my hand with the squared point, and I found that digging into the heel of my hand, not hard, but just enough to where I knew it was there. So I went ahead and I'd done my research on these, and I've looked at a lot of different styles, and I've seen them to where that will just come down and make a little parrot's beak, and that's what I've done. This is not going to be sharpened. Its purpose, one, maybe to break some glass, or two, as I said, to deliver that non-lethal type of blow to somebody, such as I pointed out, the bridge of the nose. I'm not a knife fighter, guys. I fight with knives. I struggle with them. I even curse at them, but I don't fight with them. I don't fight. But that little parrot's beak would serve well, as I said, in a punching sort of maneuver like that, to maybe bring that across your opponent's cheek, jaw, something. It's going to get their attention, and you haven't had to use the actual cutting edge. But I'm just trying to put the features into this knife that I think I would want. And then, of course, when I get the prototype finished, I'm going to show it to the guy who inspired me to make this, and we'll do any changes. The first thing might be he might want a double edge. I don't know if he does or not. The prototype won't have one, but it won't be any big deal to bring the false edge in narrower and form a true cutting edge, if that's what he wants. Other than that, this is ready to go ahead and make. Okay, got my holes transferred, and what I decided to do, I don't know really what I was thinking, but the only thing I was going to make a working pattern for was because of this big hole. How do you center it? I don't have a 1-inch transfer punch. Then I thought, you know what, I can make one. So this is a slug of 12L14 I had in my little scrap bin right under the bench here. And so I put it in a 1-inch collet, and I faced it, center drilled it, 1/8 inch. And now that is a really good fit in that finger hole. In fact, I have to tap it home just a little bit to get it to fit. But, you can't get much better than that, but it will go down. So I'll use that to center this hole so I can transfer it with an 1/8 inch transfer punch when the time comes for that. And then these are my pinholes here, and then these two will turn into 1/2 inch holes, and they're simply just to reduce weight. You won't see them under the handle scales. Now this is my carbon fiber pin stock. This is an 8-foot long piece. It's the shortest length I could order them in and get a really good price. Now this stuff is close to 1/8 of an inch. It's a little bit over. It actually mics out to 133 thousandths. And so when I drill pinholes in the handles, I like to leave a few thousandths around the pin so epoxy can get between them and really cement everything together. And epoxy adheres to this carbon fiber just excellently. So this is the number 29 drill bit, and that will allow me to drill into the tool steel and the handle material and allow epoxy to flow around everything and really lock it in. So although I could use an 1/8 inch bit just to transfer the holes, when I go to drill, when I'm doing carbon fiber, I go to the number 29 bit and not the 1/8 inch. So that's the only change I have to make there. So I'm ready to clamp this up, and I'll transfer all of my holes and transfer my profile. And then before I actually cut out the profile, I'm going to take this bar over to the mill and deal with drilling these holes. Got to take my time drilling a 1-inch hole and just work my way up to that 1-inch bit. And then these will be 1/2 inch, and again the number 29 bit will go and drill out the pinholes, and then I'm ready to grind. Okay, I have it in tool steel now, and yeah, these 1/2 inch holes, and obviously this big hole here, it right now the knife is a little bit blade heavy, and by the time we grind our bevels, I think it's going to even up to be pretty nice. Don't see any problem with balance or weight or anything like that. So these are 1/2 inch holes, and then back here, after I put a spotting drill through there, I went maybe 1/4 inch up to 1/2, and then through with a 5/8 bit. And then since I was centered up, and I did all this over on the milling machine, since I was centered up, I went ahead and mounted my boring head in there at 5/8, and I just bored it out in a few steps to its 1-inch diameter. Then I just took a Dremel tool with a stone and just went around the inside of this and just knocked that sharp corner down. And that's pretty much all we're going to do with it, other than when we get in there and final finish it when we're in final finish. So I've countersunk all of the holes. These are the number 29 holes here on both sides, so we don't get any disasters in heat treat. And we'll come back. I'll show you the grinding of the bevels, and then up here, like I always do with the false edge, I'll just take a draw file, a big file, and shape that. And I think, to me, it gives me more control shaping a false edge that way. And it doesn't take that long. This steel is not heat treated yet, so I'll come back to you when I've got this a little bit further along. Knife like this does not take long to make, that's for sure. Alright guys, we are at what I consider to be the most important step of the layout process, and that's setting where our cutting edge is going to go, and then our false edge. So I do it here on my surface plate using a height gauge, and no matter what your steel starts out as, it could be nice and flat. This is precision ground flat stock, and I feel like I could trust its trueness, but you don't have to rely on that if you do it by this method. Even if this were slightly bowed, it really doesn't matter, because this is going to be our flat reference for the rest of the job. So no matter what the steel does, we're going to make it true by striking these lines. Some people think that you can take a caliper and using the outside edge and score your lines, but if your steel isn't true, then while you may have parallel lines, they're not going to be straight. You're going to end up with a curved blade. So we want to avoid that. So you don't have to have a true surface plate. If you have a granite countertop outfit in your town, see if you can get a sink cut out. That's going to be ground and polished flat, certainly flat enough for this, for knife work. And a height gauge. Now I found this vernier scale height gauge on eBay, cheap. Nobody likes vernier scales, so I picked this up for around 20 bucks several years ago, and I taught myself to read a vernier scale. And once you had done it, you can do it, period. You know, it's not as simple and quick as using a dial, but you know, you can get by with it. So anyway, you determine how thick you want your blade to be when you finally come in for your cutting edge. On this, I want to leave about 40 thousandths between my lines. Everything on the outside of those lines gets ground away, and I bring my grind right up to the edge of that scribe that I'm getting ready to put on there. And then after heat treatment is when I take the grind down on a light regrind after heat treatment that we do. That is when those layout lines will finally just wink away and be gone, but we're still straight. So I determined my height, I set it, and so you want a nice deep scribe. Make sure that everything's locked, push down firmly, make sure that your blade is deburred. When you grind these and shape them, you can raise a burr along the edge. You want that gone so you know you're sitting flat on your surface. So you scribe one, flip it over, and scribe your other line. And that's it. And then you do the same thing back here on your false edge if you're going to have one. And if I weren't putting a false edge on this knife, I would still strike a center line just to make sure that I'm staying straight as I grind, because this is going to taper from here to the point. So I don't know if you can see those lines or not. I can see them just fine, but that's the basically that's the king of the job from here on out, are these lines. So now I'm just going to get a grinding jig that I use to define where my plunge cut is going to go. And the plunge cut is that part of the knife, like right here. This is called a plunge cut. That's where you break in and form your bevels that terminate in your cutting edge. And I have learned a long time ago, don't try to freehand that. Make use of jigs and tools. So I made a little guide that I clamp on there that holds me straight on that point so I don't creep back. And again, you want symmetry on each side of the knife. Somebody that's going to be buying this knife is going to be flipping it back and forth just like that. And you want to see a mirror image no matter which angle you're looking at. So symmetry is important for quality work. So now that we have these struck out, I'm going to go ahead and put my guide on, and I'll come back over at the grinder, and a short little blade like this will grind pretty quickly. So we'll be going into heat treatment with this knife, later today. But I'll bring you back over there at the grinder and just show you a few brief shots of the grinding process. It's a learned little skill, and if you're going to make knives, practice on cheap steel. This makes heartbreaking scrap metal, believe me, this tool steel. But you can get it with practice. So we'll see you over at the grinder.